things that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all share in common is they basically believe in a God that's incorporeal, okay, even though the Christians deviate from that because Jesus Christ becomes God in the flesh, right? But to the Jews, Christians, and Muslims, God is spiritual, right? Except with the exception for the Christians that Jesus Christ came down as God in human form. Yes, Paul? Well, let's not get into that, okay? And not now anyway. And basically, I don't want to get into aberrant offshoots or anything like that, like, people like, Gnostics or Druze or any type of particular offshoots of any religion. Basically, for mainstream Jews, Christians, and Muslims, the God is incorporeal, he's spiritual, okay, he doesn't have physical aspects, okay, and Judaism and Islam are especially fierce about this, that any depiction of God as a person is considered idolatry, or close to idolatry, okay? In Islam, it's especially idolatry. Okay, you're not even supposed to depict the Prophet Muhammad, or at the beginning, not even a human being. Okay? Now, what I want to add to that is the God of the Jews, Christians, and Muslims has these things in common. First of all, he's omnipotent. He's all-powerful. There's nothing he cannot do. Second, he is omniscient. He's all-knowing. There's nothing he does not know. Third, he is omnipresent. He's everywhere at once. Okay? Now, if he were omnipresent, there's no way he could be omnipotent or omniscient, right? Because then he'd be living in space and time like we are. Okay? We're in this classroom at this time, whatever. Okay? So, basically, what Muhammad is going to do is he's going to call people back to the one true religion. Muhammad sees himself and portrays himself as a seal of God's prophets. I'm calling you to repentance. You've heard from Abraham, you didn't listen to him. You heard from Elijah, you didn't listen to him. You heard from Moses, you didn't listen to him. You heard from others. This is the last time Allah is going to present his message to you. His message is that only I alone deserve worship. I alone am your creator, no one else. You give me reverence. If a good life is not getting everything you want. A good life is living by the laws of Allah, by the laws of God. Okay? Sometimes when you ask people, about a good life, they always think of a happy life. And the two can be synonymous, but they're not always the same. Okay? There are plenty of people that I think live very good lives that suffered. Okay? And there are other people that have basically lived the life of Riley and didn't do a damn thing to make anyone else's life better. And I don't know how many people have basically prospered from some, overpaid CEO throwing a Coke party on his yacht. So basically I want to keep that in mind. With regard to the differences, though, between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there are, but I will say that Christianity and Islam especially believe very strongly in a final judgment and a definite heaven and hell. And of course you've seen this before, right? That doesn't invalidate the faith because there were Zoroastrian influences. Some people get uncomfortable when they hear that, oh, your religion had influence from something that means it's inauthentic. That's not true, okay? You can pick up something from someone else on your own, or you could pick it up to fit your own particular beliefs. That doesn't mean that what you came up with was an aberration, okay? People trade ideas in religion and ideas in everything else like they trade goods, okay? Human beings share ideas. We influence each other. Is that not so? Of course it is so. Now, the differences, basically. Well, first of all, the Jews themselves are not going to accept Muhammad's message, and there's a problem with it. It deals with an ethnic problem. Remember that the Jews in the Old Testament a lot of times are given the sobriquet of being the chosen people, and to take in and Arab who is not a descendant of the 12 tribes of Israel would not fit within the Jewish paradigm. Judaism is an ethnic faith for the most part. You have a Jewish mother, you're Jewish. You know, basically, and you prescribe to other things. I'm not going to oversimplify it, but it's basically an ethnic religion with a holy land. Okay, the idea that God would give his new revelations to a non-Jew, an Arab, who is close to Judaism. Okay, they're both Semites, but not within the Jewish rubric. Okay, that doesn't make sense. So the Jews will reject, of course, Muhammad and his message. For the Christians and the Muslims do venerate Jesus, but as a prophet, not as God in human form. To the Muslims, it's God, it's always spirit. The idea that God could limit himself in space and time to a human body with its frailties, with its senescence, doesn't make sense to Muslims. Okay? And of course, the Christians themselves will not accept Muhammad's message. Now, while all three of these faiths are ethical monotheistic faiths with Abrahamic traditions, okay, and they do have a lot in common, more than people think in this country, because they view Islam as if it's as alien as, say, Shinto or Mahayana Buddhism, and it's not. It comes from the same family of religions. Okay? What I'm going to basically tell you about Islam, for the most part, is that it's going to develop its own dynamic, originally as a religion that's offered to the Arabs first, and then it gets universalized. A universal faith is like Buddhism, Islam, Christianity. Anyone could become a member and you proselytize. It's considered a benediction if you convert someone else to the true faith. Now, what all three of these faiths have in common, and this is the reason why a lot of them have had friction between each other, even though they're very close to each other, is because they tend to be what are exclusivist faiths. If you believe in one, you can't believe in the other. If you're a Jew, you're not going to accept the Quran as Holy Scripture. If you're a Christian, you're not going to accept the Quran as Holy Scripture. If you're a Jew, you'll adopt a specialized diet according to Leviticus and Deuteronomy. The Muslims also have a specialized diet. For the Muslims, they're going to honor Jesus, but not as a God, as a prophet. Yes?
Why are they considered exclusivist if they all believe in the Old Testament? I know that the Muslims have an idea, the people of the book, and they would...
The dhimmi, that's right. And that's right. And the Muslims will view Jews and Christians, for the most part, as having partial truth. Meaning, your revelations are accurate, for the most part, except with the Christians saying that Jesus is God. Okay? They're going to accept them as a prophet, and they're not going to say that these are inaccurate testimonies. They're going to say they're valid faiths, but they're partial faiths. If you want the complete truth, then you embrace Muhammad in the Quran. Kim? He's going to be the final seal of the word of Allah.
But who would be like more of the highest prophet in Muslim religion?
Okay. The highest prophet would, of course, be Muhammad, because that's to whom Allah will reveal himself through the angel Gabriel. Now, listen carefully. I'll tell you when I was growing up, people referred to Muslims sometimes as Mohammedans, which is a bad term, because it makes it seem like Muslims worship Muhammad. The word Islam means submission to the will of Allah. A Muslim is one who surrenders, one who submits. That's what it means. Okay? I'm going to tell you once again that got bastardized in America. I'll give you the story. When 9/11 had taken place, they were interviewing some of the geniuses in America about what they thought had happened. And they had this one woman who was interviewed, and she goes, I don't understand how this could happen. Islam means peace. Salam means peace. Islam could have a root in it, but it really means submission to the will of Allah. And the idea that Islam is a religion of violence. It's total 100% unadulterated bullshit. Okay? Because violence is a human problem. The Nazis were an atheistic state. They did a pretty damn good job of being violent. Okay? So anyone that comes up with the idea that religion foments violence, no. You could either be a good practitioner of your faith, you could twist it in other ways, and that's true of Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, and anyone, because violence is a human problem, not a doctrinal. Okay? So basically, I wanted to clear the air on that. Sarah, I dissed you. You had your hands up before. Mon pardon.
Exclusiveness, but how come, like, you always see, like, are they open to converts? Like, you see, like, they're always trying to, like, convert people.
Who is trying to convert people?
Christians and other Muslims?
Christians and Muslims will try to convert people. They see that as basically being beneficent. If I believe I have the truth and that it's beneficial to me, then one way of doing that is sharing it with you.
Well, how is it exclusive?
Because you accept a particular ideology and that's it. Okay? You can't have three notions of God the same across the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. They're all going to differ somewhat. Okay? Whether it's circumcision, whether it's a specialized diet. The Christians don't have a specialized diet. You can eat whatever you want to. In the book of Acts, basically Peter is told that, whatever God has cleansed, do not call unclean, meaning you can have anything you want. However, that's not the case in Judaism. If you're going to basically honor, the dietary laws of Leviticus, Deuteronomy, okay, you eat the animals that have cloven hoof and chew cud, you eat the fish that have fins and scales, and you eat the insects that creepeth and leapeth. So grasshoppers and locusts are kosher, beetles and spiders are not. Okay, yes, sir.
I think with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all came at different periods of time. And when Judaism came, it was basically tribal religion.
Very much so.
People dealing with the desert. And it sort of became more of a feudal religion under David, but for the most part, it was tribal, and Christianity is more of a feudal religion.
Christianity is definitely a universal faith.
Right, but what I'm saying is it has kings and all of that, and then it was adapted to the feudal era.
Yeah.
And then Islam, it came out of an area where feudalism wasn't that strong, and it was adapted.
Feudalism wouldn't make sense in the desert.
Exactly, what merchants do, so it represents more of a mercantile ideal.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because there were no injunctions against trade in Islam, because Muhammad himself was a successful businessman.
Right, they even had like banking rules in
Oh, sure.
Islam.
Sure, they
don't have the
definitely
other
did.
ones. So I think these religions actually parallels with the development of humankind.
Of course, but then again, too, remember that each one of them has their own unique practices and view of God. So in effect, what you're basically going to see is each one has a different way to get to salvation. If you do not accept Christ, you're considered bound for hell. If you're from a Christian perspective, okay, I'm the truth, the way, and the life. Okay, so if you're a Christian, you have to accept the fact that Jesus Christ was God in human form. To certain Christians, if you deny that, you're on the way to hell. Now look, you can't. It's easy in Eastern Asian faiths or to become a Confucian, a Taoist, and a Mahayana Buddhist, and you won't have any problems because they're not exclusivist faiths. And they each function in different aspects of life. Some are ethical, others metaphysical. Okay? But if you want to become a Jew, Christian, and a Muslim, explain that to your rabbi, imam, and priest. They're going to suggest you get a psychiatrist. Sorry, but when... Patrick?
Can you become a Jew if you're not, like, your family's not,
Can you convert to Judaism? Yes. Yes, you may. As a matter of fact, there was a Turkic tribe that did, the Khazars, who actually had converted to Judaism. And there are some problems with it, though. And I'm going to tell you that one of the main reasons why the Romans, when they took on Christianity, did not become Jews first, were for basic two reasons. Number one, in order for a Roman Gentile to become a Jew before they become a Christian means the men are going to have to lose an inch. Okay, they're getting circumcised. Okay, and that's a painful and dangerous operation for an adult male to go through. You didn't have anesthetic back then. Okay, another thing is that the Jews had a restricted diet, and a lot of Romans didn't want to give up their pork and their, their lobster, their shellfish, all this stuff that's not kosher. So what St. Paul did was he basically made the stipulation that you don't have to become a Jew, and that Christ's sacrifice on the cross enabled any Gentile to become a Christian without having to succumb to the laws of Judaism, which Christ's sacrifice invalidated according to Christians. Okay, Marcos? For an Arab monotheist. Okay, yes. And let's go this way, and we'll start with Deidre, okay? You're number one.
If the Jews don't convert, like they don't convert the way Christians and Muslims are like this, I don't know.
No,
do they
the
go
Jews
on-
are not an aggressive proselytizing
They
faith.
have to come to them.
Right. As a matter of fact, if you ever see sometimes a mitzvah mobile that would come around too, they're not going to say become a Jew. They're going to ask you first, are you Jewish? And then you come and you get a blessing. You find olives to fill in, and it's not like you see a lot of Judaism is not really an aggressive proselytizing faith. Turn on the weekends, early in the morning, turn on the channel and see how many rabbis are basically rattling the tin cup. You see these Southern Baptist preachers that basically are on there, a million shows of that, and basically, and the devil will send you to hell, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get a choir and you get entertainment. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. If it gives somebody else comfort, who the hell am I to say, don't do it? You could believe in the frickin' Easter bunny. I couldn't care less. That's a personal thing. But what I'm saying is you see that type of aggressive proselytization more with Christianity than you see in the United States with Judaism or with Islam. How many programs do you see like, oh, this is Friday khutbah service, and you see like some dancing imams or anything like that. I mean, every now and then you might see, a Jewish Chabad festival or something, and they could bring in money too, for people who are in the faith. But I never really hear anyone trying to convert anyone to the faith. Yes, Sean?
So if they're not trying to convert, is it slowly dwindling?
No, you're always going to have reproduction. There's not going to be like the Manichaeans that basically tell you, listen, you reproduce. It may be fun for you now, but you'll pay later. Okay, you're bringing more corrupt matter into the world, you sinful SOB. So keep celibate and eat those light fruits and vegetables. And the best thing that can happen is you drop dead without issue when you go up there and play the harp in the sky or whatever. With regard to Islam, though, Islam originally is going to appeal, of course, to Arab Bedouins, and there is going to be an attempt to convert some Jews and Christians that live in the area to Muhammad's message. But it's not conversion by the sword, okay? Because there's an injunction against forced conversion in Islam. You're supposed to come to the Prophet. You're supposed to, come to Allah with your uncoerced heart, and because you love Him, not because somebody's putting a scimitar at your throat. Yes.
But also, like when the Islamic conquest begins, like the fact that there's an Islam minority, since it allows, there's like certain benefits that they receive in terms of the spoils of conquered territory, and I know goes to the current Islam smaller minority.
Sure.
And tax breaks and things like that, but then only later on.
Right, it's going to morph. You understand that correctly. And there are other people here. I'm sorry that I did, and then we'll work our way back to Kenny. Okay? Faisal, and then we'll talk to Josh.
When you were talking about diet, there was talking about 7 days in Baptist, and she was saying that Christians also have a diet. They can eat that because this was saying about.
Once again, that's not mainstream Christianity. It's like an offshoot. Technically, Mormons are Christians, and they're polygamists. And, you know, you could always find offshoots. You could find offshoots in Islam, too. I mean, if you go to the island of Lombok in Indonesia, which I know a lot of you plan to do, basically they don't practice the salat, which is the 5-time daily prayer there. And that's actually part of al-Ibadat, the 5 pillars of Islam. And yet they don't practice that there. So you're always going to see sometimes some aberration. Because remember, too, that a lot of these religions are still living faiths. They're changing a little according to the times and certain geographical challenges. And remember that Islam has spread out throughout the world, and the Islam that's being practiced in Indonesia is different from the one in Chechnya, or Albania, or Tunisia, or other parts of the world.